A continuación tengo el agrado de recibir a Orlando Cisterna. Orlando actualmente cursa su último año de licenciatura en Lengua y Literatura Inglesa de la Universidad de Chile y asiste al seminario de literatura inglesa impartido por el profesor Héctor grado. Hoy nos presentará su ponencia titulada Frankenstein, or the Modern Prometheus, a critical interpretation of the myth. Un aplauso, por favor.
Bueno, primero que todo. ¿Ahí se escucha? ¿Sí o no? ¿Ahí se escucha? ¿Y ahora? Bueno, primero que todo quiero felicitar a los chicos que estuvieron presentando anteriormente. Estuvo sumamente interesante y me gustó bastante. Yo creo que es necesario generar consenso sobre ese aspecto de las necesidades que presenta la educación comunitaria en nuestro país. Bueno, primero que todo, well, first of all, I hope you are doing well now. This presentation is going to be divided in a little bit in three sections. In the first section, I'm going to provide a little bit of background in which you can understand certain elements about Prometheus, myth, and the context of production of the novel itself. Then I'm going to tackle the novel, Frankenstein, and finally I'm going to provide my own critical analysis of this particular novel. So, certainly, most of us know about the story of Frankenstein or this modern Prometheus through what cultural studies or through filmmaking have delivered to us, and we had access to it. So, of course, through filmmaking, filmmakers have misunderstood one of the pivotal principles that surrounded the creation not only of Prometheus as a myth, but of the novel itself, Frankenstein. So, I'm going to quote Harold Bloom, with his own opinion about Frankenstein. So, it was a vision so intense that it produced one of the most powerful horror stories in the Western literature, a story that assumed mythic dimensions, as it addressed profound implications concerning man's understanding of his own place of the world and the consequence of transgressing God and nature. So, whenever we are dealing with the actual story of Frankenstein, we need to be conscious about that. We need to come back to certain ideas, and we must have a stand-back position of it. And in order to understand it, I'm going to first of all define one of the key elements that allow us to understand Prometheus and Frankenstein in itself, which is the concept of a myth. So, according to Northrop Frye, which is an American new critic, which is one of the most important critics about literature. So, one of the key elements to understand a myth is that a myth in itself is a narrative structure that is composed by the imagery and conceptual implications. So it is in total opposition to what we consider as naturalistic literature. I mean, if you understand the concept of mimesis, that sort of literature that is like real life, and it's not based upon the building of concepts. So, understanding what we have here is that a myth in itself moves beyond what we consider as a true story or what is considered as real, and through the element or through the act of displacement, we move from what we believe as a real or true story, and we create a world of an imagination world in which the concept of myth rises. So, in that understanding, one of the elements that we must understand about it is that there are two ways in which a myth may represent a society. One of the ways is that it may represent the apocalyptic world, or in our concept, the world of man, the polis, the country in itself. Not the country, but the urban placement. On the other hand, we have other types of myths which actually deal with what is outside the city, or in the outskirts of it, which are the natural myth. So this is quite important for us, because in order to understand Prometheus, we must understand that in the 5th century before Christ, at the moment in which the democracy was established in Greece, Prometheus represented a revolutionary leader, a military leader, that their Jupiter or Zeus, whenever the translation it is, and he was punished because of his act of daring his own father, the military leader in a way, and he was put away of the city, of the urban ground. So, why this is so important for us? Because not only for understanding the myth, but for understanding that the myth of Prometheus had always been related with a revolutionary society, with a revolution in itself. So, as I explained before, for the Greek people, Prometheus was, truly represent the figure of a military leader. But the Romantics in the 18th and 19th century, but they understood as revolutionary leader, they applied it for their own political context. And there are three elements that are quite important for them, for the English Romantic poets, that allow them to take all the elements that belonged to this Greek tradition of this military leader, of this revolutionary leader, and translate them into a modern interpretation of it, and to bring in three elements or three aspects that for them were quite relevant. So these are creativity, freedom, and knowledge. Creativity in order that for the Romantic writers, one of the key elements that allow them to be part of their own world was through the creative experience. So they needed to create, as Harold Bloom suggests, a known Protestant mythology in their own period of time. The other concept that is quite important for us is the concept of freedom. So it is freedom, or as it occurred in Frankenstein, or most of the narratives of the period, the liberal revolution that was so important for them as Romantic writers, in order that the fallen monarchies, the end of a tyranny in Europe at the 18th and 19th century, moved them in order to create these stories about a man who might free himself, or was punished, as it occurred with Prometheus and Prometheus Bound, for delivering the fire or delivering knowledge to mankind. And that's why knowledge is so important. Knowledge in itself allows us as mortals, as we are, to transcend and to go beyond our organic materiality. So I'm going to talk about now the actual context of the production of it. So, as Diego, I don't know if it's Diego, I can't see you. Here you are. He showed to us the discussion about Paradise Lost. So, one of the main consequences, or the main influence that Milton had to write at that period of time, the Paradise Lost, was the English Commonwealth, which actually was 150 years before the English and the American Revolution, and they established a republic in England. So that, in a way, affected not only the romantic production in England, but in the entire Europe there was a desire of coming back to this idea. So, in a way, and not only Milton, but in Blake, in the Proverbs of Heaven and Hell, and in other novels or lyric works, there was this sensation in which there was a revolution possible. There was a possible revolution that the romantic writers were allowed to participate in it. So, but also there was another element that added to this context, allowed them to believe in a new Prometheus, and this was the rising and fall of Napoleon. Especially for Lord Byron and for Percy Shelley, they considered Napoleon as a savior, a truly Prometheus in a real, in a true scheme. So, and of course, the fall of absolute monarchies allowed them to believe that there was a change possible in that society, in their societies. So it was not by mere chance that at the period of the production of Frankenstein itself, many lectures and readings about Prometheus appeared as published in the period of time. So namely, it is supposed that Mary Shelley, she actually saw the representation of Timur's Prometheus in Chains, which was one of the first translations of it. And especially Prometheus Unbound and Lord Byron, Ode to Prometheus and Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus, they were in a way created or performed, or they were thought in the summer of 1816 and Lake Geneva, Switzerland, which the three of them, a couple of the Shelleys and Lord Byron, they were having some time. And they decided to create a ghost stories, as they explained. So they were moved. Frankenstein itself started and was born in the idea that, in the discussions of the arguments that Percy Shelley and Lord Byron were having about how can we create life in an inanimate body. And they were thinking about it in a way that they can actually, through electricity, give life to an animated being. So now, I'm going to talk about Frankenstein the novel. I know that this is a lot of prompting, allow you to understand certain elements that I'm going to explain now. So, from Jane Goodall, one of the key elements of understanding Frankenstein was that the ideological climate of Shelley times and its impacts were central, in terms that not only she was affected not only by this, by the Enlightenment, but also by the actual social tensions of her own period of time. The utilitarian philosophy in England at that period of time was the highest position, and in 1818, the massacre of Peterloo affected a lot of the narrative production of that period of time. So another element is that, in a way, Frankenstein in itself is a mixture between what we consider as a scientific novel or a science fiction novel, or a novel in which we can find a certain kind of wisdom in itself. So and that's quite related to the predestination idea that gathered most of the Protestant beliefs and ideas of the period. And another element that is quite important that is suggested by Peter Brooks, in which the high drama of destiny in itself is underway. And that means that all the elements, all the narrative is built in a way that the characters, they decided, or they were part of this tragic destiny because of their own actions. And that's quite important because, and that's an element that I'm going to tackle a little bit later, to understand this modernist interpretation of Frankenstein, we must understand also the rising of the individuality as a true concept of the modern period. So, in technical terms, what we found in Frankenstein is a matryoshka. I don't know if you know the concept of it, which is a tale within a tale, a narrative within a narrative within a narrative. And what it is even more important than that, the fact that we have three narrators or three narrative characters allow us to understand that this was the novel in itself actually had a very complex structure. So the first narrator is Mr. Walton. I mean, who of you have read the novel in order not to be spoiling the subject? Oh, you are? Okay. Please raise your hand if you can. Well, I will spoil you. So, at the end of at the beginning and at the end of the novel, we have the presence of Mr. Walton, who is actually sending letters to his sister in England. And by any chance, they saw a figure in the Arctic, and at the same time they found a man who was almost dying, who was in an agony moment. And that's the moment in which the narrative of Victor Frankenstein appears. And he started to narrate his own story about the events that occurred to him, not only when his own education and when the unfortunate events that occurred to him when he was young, but the very process of the creation of this monster. And after that, those of you who have read the novel know that there's a tragedy going because of it. And I'm going to explain that a little bit later. So that's part of the volume 1 of the novel. And in volume 2 of the novel appears a rise, the unnamed being story. So that's quite important because most of us get confused when we read Frankenstein or as cultural interpretations of it, that we tend to give a name to the monster. I mean, even the word monster appears just 1 or 2 times in the novel. It is considered a wretched creature, abomination, a horrible being, a demon, but it's never considered a monster. Of course, at the moment of creation of Frankenstein, of Victor Frankenstein, when he created this being, he felt abhorred and he questioned himself, why did I create this? But it's a total misunderstanding to believe that the monster in itself has a name. It actually never has it through all of the novel. Now, I'm going to give to you some, which is part of my critical interpretation of Frankenstein. So, in the understanding that this was a cause-effect novel. So in the volume 1 of the novel, we have the structure and the own narrative of Victor Frankenstein, who is telling his own vision of the novel, of the events that occur. So, of course, he was a man of the period. He was raised in a liberal community, which was the community of Cisterna. And even he described at the beginning of his own narration, I am very Japanese and my family is one of the most distinguished of the Republic. So that's quite modern for us. I mean, at that period of time, the historical process, as I explained before, talking about the liberal community was a little bit new for their own narratives. Because in England we have the monarchy, and in the rest of Europe there were kingdoms and realms. And the only difference that had Switzerland with all the other territories was that this was a true republic, in which it is believed all of us are equals, in a way. It is not a social structure like a pyramid in which is king, then the aristocrats, and then the other people. And this is a little bit of gossiping, but the University of Ingolstadt will also want to study Percival Shelley. It is considered the place in which the Illuminati were started their community, and the idea that the Illumination man was rising at the period of time. So in order to create the monster, he spent about 2 years, and this is quite relevant. He felt sick of it, and he actually didn't have. He followed his own impulse and perceptions in order to, well, I need to create this machine. Actually, he didn't consider a machine, but this being. And well, I'm going to quote the novel. I had worked hard for nearly 2 years for the sole purpose of infusing life into an animate body. I had deprived myself of rest and health, and had decided with ardor that far exceeded moderation. But now that I had finished, the beauty of a dream vanished, and breathless horror and disgust filled my heart. Unable to endure the aspect of the being I had created, I rushed out of the room. So, this particular moment of the novel allow us to move towards the rising of this unnamed being, which is part of my own critical interpretation of the novel. So, actually, Frankenstein was a tyrant, because he, through knowledge, created this monster and abandoned him, this monster of this being, and abandoned him. So, at the moment in which the narration of this unnamed being started, it's quite important for us to understand that this being didn't have a name, and he asked and demanded to his own creator the listening of the story. So, listen to my tale, but hear me the guilty are allowed by human laws, glorious they may be, to speak in their own defense before they are condemned. So, he demands from Victor and the volunteer of the novel to listen to his own story. So, through the narrative process, Victor is seduced by this unnamed being. So, I'm going to provide you just a few lines of the Prometheus, which is part of the actual basic elements that allow the Mary Shelley in order to deliver his own creation. So, just a few lines of it. This is in Spanish. Oídme las penas de los mortales, como los convertí de niños que eran antes en seres conscientes y dueños de su razón, y os hablaré sin tener reproche alguno para los hombres, sino explicando la buena voluntad de lo que les di. Nadie bien lo sé, salvo si se quiere van a decir tonterías, una palabra y la suma de todo en una breve frase, a los hombres todas las artes de Prometeo. ¿Ya? Entonces, en este sentido, la narrativa del Prometeo moderno le ayuda en términos artísticos a construirse a sí mismo como un ser, en el cual, y esa es una de las formas principales del cual él tiene para comunicarse y constituirse como un ser en sí mismo. Lamentablemente, este ser, a través de un acto de venganza, que es parte de la tragedia en sí misma, él comete obviamente los actos de asesinato, y precisamente él se convierte nuevamente en un tirano, en el cual él transforma a Víctor en esclavo de su propia búsqueda de una pareja, como sucede para Victor en busca de una Eva. Entonces, como conclusión, la criatura en sí misma, aunque no es llamada en ningún momento un demonio o un monstruo, o sea, it's not at any time called a monster, it is actually become a tyrant rather than a monster in itself. So he actually did not kill, but he saw the death of Victor, and he lives through eternity and forever at the end of the novel. So he became a myth, this creation, a myth in itself.
Muchas gracias, Armando. Estamos en hora de pasar al almuerzo, así que lo invitamos ya. ¿No? No pasamos al almuerzo. Ok, pero no. Diego, una pregunta.
Sí, el 2003 estaba pensando que quizás Frankenstein puede considerarse dentro de los géneros literarios como una novela ensayo, en el sentido de que en el mismo título de que Frankenstein, la tesis podría decir Frankenstein es el Prometeo moderno, y a través de la narración se argumenta esa tesis.
Claro.
Creo que el discurso literario que tiene es muy argumentativo a veces, porque está siempre haciendo una reflexión como metaliteraria.
Sí, hay un elemento que iba a mencionar, pero que a razón del tiempo no es previsible, pero una de las teorías que ayuda a construir, y esto es parte de, más que nada, de la lingüística de la literatura, a través de la subjetividad del lenguaje que propone Benveniste. O sea, a través del lenguaje se permite la construcción de identidad y de nosotros como seres. Así que la pregunta no es si es Frankenstein en la historia del Prometeo moderno, porque acuérdate que ese or significa que van a haber dos posibilidades: o la narración de Frankenstein o la narración del Prometeo moderno, que precisamente está ligado a la presentación porque nunca tuvo un nombre. O sea, podemos encontrarnos con dos narrativas. Una es la narrativa de Frankenstein, de Victor Frankenstein, y la otra es la narrativa de este ser que al no tener nombre podría llamarse el Prometeo moderno.
Muchas gracias. No hay más tiempo de preguntas, lo siento. Claro. Gracias. Un aplauso.